New York looked clean on camera. Up close, it was loud, crowded, and full of people pushing past each other to get a better view. Annie January stood behind the velvet ropes in her starlight boots and smile. The lights were so bright that the street felt like a stage. A VOD assistant with a headset kept whispering reminders. Hit your mark. Wave left. Then the kid with the sign. Then the sponsor wall. Annie nodded like she agreed, because nodding was faster than arguing. In front of her, a fake rescue scene was set up. A smashed car that had been smashed on purpose. A danger zone, painted on the street that wasn't dangerous at all. A line of fans pressed against barriers, phones up, faces shining with excitement. Above the crowd, screens showed Starlight's face with a golden glow filter. The words underneath were bold and simple. Stay bright. Annie's stomach tightened. She could feel the lie in the air, like heat from a lamp. A cheer rose as Homelander floated down. Perfect hair, perfect grin. Cape moving like it had its own team of helpers. Cameras snapped toward him like metal to a magnet. "New York," he called, warm and loud. "We love you." The cheer doubled. Annie clapped on cue. Then the air changed. It happened in the space between one heartbeat and the next. A thin line appeared above the street, high over the sponsor wall. It looked like a crack in glass, except it was in the sky. Green light leaked out, sharp and bright, like a welding torch. People pointed. Some laughed, like it was part of the show. The crack widened. A sound rolled out that was not music and not thunder, more like a low, angry hum that made Annie's teeth buzz. Something fell. Not a drone, not a prop. A man. Small compared to Homelander, but still a real person. He dropped fast, tumbling, arms flailing like he had no idea how he got there. Annie's mouth went dry. He hit the street hard enough to crack the pavement. Dust jumped. The crowd screamed. For 1 second, the lights and music kept going, because the control booth didn't know what to do. Then everything cut out at once, and the street felt too quiet for such a big city. The man didn't move. Then he groaned, rolling onto his side. He was thin. His clothes were torn and dirty. A pair of broken glasses lay near his hand. His skin looked pale under the bright event lights. Security rushed in. Vought's private guards, black armor, rifles held tight. An assistant shouted into a radio, voice shaking. "Is this a stunt? Who approved this?" No one answered. Homelander drifted lower, smile still on, because the cameras were still rolling. He looked at the green crack in the sky, then down at the man. "Okay," Homelander said, tone playful. "Who's the magician?" The man pushed himself up on one elbow. His eyes were wide and unfocused. He looked around like a trapped animal, breathing fast. "Please," he said, voice rough. Don't come close." A guard stepped forward anyway, because guards always stepped forward. He aimed a taser. "Hands where I can see them," the guard barked. The man's hands lifted slowly. They shook. He tried to speak again, like he had more words ready, but his chest hitched. Annie saw it before anyone else did. She had seen panic up close. She had lived with it. The man's breathing got sharper. His shoulders tensed. His fingers curled like he was trying to hold something back. "Hey!" Annie called, stepping around the sponsor wall. "Stop! Give him space!" The guard didn't listen. He fired. Blue wires snapped out. Electricity popped. The man jerked, teeth clenched, a sound trapped in his throat. Then the change started. His muscles swelled under his torn shirt like something was pushing outward. His spine straightened. His arms thickened, veins rising fast. His skin shifted. Not bruised, not burned. Turning green, like color flooding into him. The guard stumbled backward. "What the?" The man's face twisted, jaw widening, teeth grinding. He let out a growl that became a roar, deep enough that Annie felt it in her ribs. He rose to his feet. But rose was the wrong word. It was like a building coming up out of the ground. In 2 breaths, the thin, scared man was gone. In his place stood a giant. Green skin, huge shoulders, hands like sledgehammers, eyes narrowed, not with cleverness, but with pure focus. The crowd screamed again, louder this time. Phones shook. People pushed. The barrier bent. The giant turned his head toward the sound. His gaze landed on the packed fans. For a moment, Annie's fear locked her feet to the pavement. Then a support beam from the sponsor wall snapped under the panicked surge. A heavy lighting rig swung down toward the front row. The giant moved. 1 step. The street cracked. Another step. Faster. He threw his arm up, catching the falling rig like it weighed nothing. Metal groaned. Sparks rained. Annie expected him to fling it into the crowd by accident. Instead, he shoved it away from people and into an empty patch of street. It hit with a clang and slid, leaving a bright scrape mark. The crowd froze, stunned. The giant's chest rose and fell. He looked at his own hand like he didn't fully understand why he had moved that way. Then more guards raised guns. Too many. Too close. Homelander floated down to eye level, finally letting his smile fade into something sharper. "Listen up," Homelander said, voice low but carrying. "You're in my city now." The giant turned toward him. Their eyes met. Homelander was used to fear. He was used to being the biggest thing in the sky. This time, he felt something else. Pressure. Not from heat vision. Not from sound. From the fact that the giant did not care about him. Homelander's jaw tightened. He forced his voice to stay calm, because the cameras were still finding angles. "Kneel," he said. The giant blinked once. Then he roared again, louder, shaking windows. The streetlights flickered. Annie's heart dropped. This was not a Vought problem. This was a world problem. And it had just landed on their stage. Vought Tower did not scream. It did not panic. It simply moved. Stan Edgar watched the playback in a quiet conference room with no windows. The screen showed the green crack, the falling man, the change, the giant stopping the falling rig. Edgar didn't flinch. Around him, people did. A young executive dabbed sweat from his upper lip. A PR lead whispered, "We can call it a special guest soup. We can." Edgar lifted one finger. Silence snapped into place. "How many cameras?" Edgar asked. "Over 200 phones. 3 news drones. Our official crew had 5 angles before they cut," someone replied. "Good," Edgar said, like they had just completed a routine test. A scientist leaned forward, eyes hungry. "Sir, that transformation, it doesn't match Compound 5 patterns. The energy signature is strange." "Strange is not a diagnosis," Edgar said. The scientist swallowed. "The radiation, sir, it's gamma heavy. We've never seen anything like it." Edgar nodded once. "Slow. Then we will." He tapped the table. A file slid open on a screen. Containment protocols. Beneath that, crisis management. Beneath that, brand protection. It looked like a normal Vought plan. Boxes and arrows, names of teams, phone numbers. But the last page had a different title. Project Greenlight. Edgar turned to the head of security. "I want it alive." "It?" the man asked, careful. Edgar's eyes stayed on the screen, where the giant stared at Homelander with zero respect. "Yes," Edgar said. "It." Billy Butcher watched the same footage on a cracked laptop in a cramped room that smelled like old coffee and damp clothes. The boy's hideout was not a tower. It was barely a home. Huey sat beside him, pale. That thing is huge." Frenchie leaned in, eyes wide, excitement fighting fear. "Mon Dieu, look at the force, like a tank with legs." Mother's Milk didn't smile. He didn't lean forward. He kept his hands together like he was holding himself still. "That's not a tank," MM said. That's an earthquake. Butcher's mouth curled up, like he'd just been handed a knife after months with bare hands. Vought's got themselves a proper problem, he said. Starlight's face appeared on the screen for a moment, shouting at guards. Then it cut to Homelander hovering, cape perfect, pretending he was in control. Butcher's eyes stayed on the green giant. Imagine, Butcher murmured, that thing on Homelander's neck. Huey swallowed. Or imagine that thing on everyone's neck. Butcher snapped his head toward him. Don't go soft on me, Huey. I'm not, Huey said, voice thin. I'm being real. Finally spoke, steady and hard. Real is this. If we try to use it, we die. If Vought catches it, other people die. So we do the only smart thing. Butcher arched a brow. Which is? We find the man, said. Not the monster. The man. Butcher's smile didn't change, but something cold moved behind it. Fine, he said. We find the man. Kimiko stood in the corner, quiet as a shadow. Her eyes were fixed on the screen. When the giant caught the falling rig, her expression shifted, just slightly, like she understood what it meant to hurt people by accident. Frenchie noticed. You think he tried to save them? Kimiko's fingers tapped her own chest once, then held up a fist. A trapped person. A powerful body. A problem no one asked for. Huey looked at the cracked glasses on the screen. Those were his, he said softly. He was normal. For a second. Butcher slammed the laptop shut. Right. Enough feelings. He grabbed a map and a marker. We track where it went. We get there before the capes. Then we decide what we've got. Stared at him. We decide how we don't die. Butcher waved him off. Same thing. Night swallowed the city fast after the event ended. Not because the sun set, because Vought made it so. News helicopters were pushed away. Streets were blocked. Sirens were rerouted. Whole blocks went quiet like someone had turned the volume down. In the dark space between two warehouses near the river, a giant shape crouched behind stacked shipping containers. The green skin was hard to miss, even in shadows. The giant's breathing came in heavy pulls. His back rose and fell like a moving hill. Then, slowly, the bulk shrank. The green faded. Muscle pulled inward. Bones shifted. The giant folded down into a man, collapsing to his knees on cold concrete. Bruce Banner hugged himself, shivering, even though the night wasn't that cold. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely touch the wall in front of him. He stared at the empty space ahead, eyes wide, like he was trying to see through the dark. Not here, he whispered. Please, not here. His voice cracked. He pressed his forehead to the wall, breathing in, breathing out, counting in his head. 1, 2, 3, 4. He reached into his pocket. Nothing. He looked down at his clothes. Torn. No phone. No bag. No ID. He swallowed hard. He felt the memory of bright lights and screaming, the electric sting, the huge rage like a wave. He did not remember every detail of what the other one did. He never did. That was the worst part. He forced himself to stand. His legs wobbled. He steadied himself with one hand on a container. He needed to get away from people. He needed quiet. He needed something normal. A lab. A bed. A corner. But he could hear distant sirens. He could hear boots somewhere far off. He could hear the city looking for him. He glanced down at his hands like they belonged to someone else. Okay, he whispered, talking to himself like he was a scared kid. Okay, just don't panic. He took one step, then another, moving deeper into the industrial maze. Behind him, across the river, a line of lights moved in a steady pattern. Not police lights. Searchlights. Vought's lights. Annie moved through a different kind of dark. She was still in costume, but her cape was gone. Her hair was pulled back. She wore a hoodie over her suit to hide the bright gold. She had left Vought Tower hours ago with a fake smile and a real stomachache. Now she stood on a rooftop near the last known area where the green giant had vanished, listening to the city. She wasn't alone. A small Vought drone buzzed overhead, scanning. Annie watched it with anger rising in her chest. "They're hunting him like an animal," she muttered. A voice behind her said, "Because they want to own him." She spun. Huey stood there, hands up, trying to look harmless, even though his face was tense. Annie's eyes narrowed. "You?" "Me," Huey said quickly. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here because I think you want to help him." Annie stared at him. She didn't trust easily. Not anymore. But Huey looked scared in a familiar way, like someone who had seen something too big and couldn't unsee it. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "Neither should you," Huey replied, then winced. "Sorry. That sounded dumb." Annie didn't laugh, but the corner of her mouth twitched. Huey took a breath. "Look, that guy, he didn't choose this. I saw his face, for a second, before." He gestured, not finishing the sentence. Annie's voice lowered. "He told them to stay back." "Yeah," Huey said, nodding fast. "And they didn't. And now Vought's gonna do what Vought does." Annie glanced toward the river. The searchlight swept again. "What do you want?" she asked. Huey hesitated, then said the truth in a small voice. "I want to find him before they do." Annie held his gaze. She saw the fear. She also saw the stubborn hope under it. She made a choice she would have never made back when she still believed in the posters. "Okay," she said, "but we do it smart." Huey blinked. "Smart how?" Annie pointed at the drone overhead. "First, we don't get spotted." Vought's first containment team did not come with speeches. They came with trucks that looked like normal delivery vans. They came with men in black armor. They came with sound cannons mounted on heavy frames. They came with syringes filled with enough tranquilizer to drop an elephant. They also came with paperwork. A Vought legal rep walked beside the squad leader, clutching a clipboard in a clear plastic folder like it was a shield. "If it's a new soup," the rep said, voice tight, "we need signed release forms before any footage is used." The squad leader stared at him. "If it eats me, can it sign?" The rep didn't answer. They followed heat trails, broken concrete, bent metal, a smashed dumpster. Every sign screamed power. Then they found an empty warehouse with a cracked back door, hanging loose. Inside they found him, not the giant. A man, thin, bruised, sitting on the floor with his back against a wall, knees pulled to his chest. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes lifted when the lights hit him. Fear flashed, sharp. "Don't," he said, hoarse. "Please, just don't." The squad leader raised a hand to pause his team. "Sir," he said, trying a calm voice like he had watched a training video, "we're here to help." The man let out a small, broken laugh. "Help?" he whispered. "You brought guns." The legal rep stepped forward, clearing his throat. "On behalf of Vought International, we would like to—" The man's eyes widened like the words were a trigger. His breathing sped up. "No," he said. "No, no, no." He pressed his palms to the floor like he was trying to hold himself down. The squad leader's earpiece crackled. "Proceed," a voice said. Cold. Edgar's voice. The squad leader grimaced. He nodded to his men. A guard lifted a rifle. Annie watched from a broken window across the street, hidden in shadow. Huey crouched beside her, trying not to make a sound. "Stop," Annie breathed. Like her voice could reach through glass, the rifle aimed. Banner's breathing turned into a desperate gasp. "Back up," he pleaded. "If you scare me, you're going to—" The guard fired a tranquilizer dart. It hit Banner in the shoulder. For half a second, nothing happened. Then Banner's face twisted with pain and panic, and the air in the warehouse felt like it tightened. His muscles swelled. His skin turned green. The floor cracked under him as he rose. The legal rep dropped his clipboard and ran. The squad leader's calm voice vanished. Sound cannons, now! The sound cannons boomed, low and heavy. The pressure hit Annie's ears even from across the street. Huey flinched and covered his head. Inside, the green giant staggered, hands flying to his skull. Then he roared. The roar didn't just sound loud, it felt loud. Dust shook from the ceiling. The warehouse lights flickered. The giant grabbed one sound cannon like it was a toy and smashed it into the floor. Metal snapped. A guard fired again. The dart hit green skin and bounced off like a toothpick. The squad leader's eyes went wide. Oh God! The giant lunged. He didn't move like a slow monster. He moved like a storm. 1 second he was across the room. The next he was in their faces. Annie's breath caught. Huey whispered, "That's not possible." The giant slammed a fist into the concrete between two guards, not even aiming at them. The floor buckled. Both men went flying backward like the ground had kicked them. The squad leader tried to retreat. The giant grabbed a steel beam and swung it, not as a weapon meant to slice, but like a bat meant to clear space. The wall exploded outward. The giant burst out of the warehouse into open air. Annie and Huey ducked as debris rained. The giant landed in the street with a thud that made parked cars jump. He stood there, chest rising, eyes scanning, not hunting, searching, like he wanted a path out. Then the sky above brightened. Homelander dropped down again, faster this time, not smiling at all. Behind him, a second group arrived in vehicles with bright Vought logos, this time with cameras too, already rolling. Because even in a crisis, Vought wanted content. Homelander's boots touched the street. He stared up at the giant's face. Annie felt the tension like a wire pulled too tight. Huey's hands trembled. Homelander tilted his head. His voice was soft, but it carried. "All right," he said. "Enough." The giant's lips curled back. His fists clenched. Homelander's eyes glowed red. Annie swallowed hard. Whatever happened next was going to be seen by everyone, and no one was going to be able to pretend it was normal. Homelander moved first. He shot forward in a blur and slammed his shoulder into the giant's chest, driving him backward across the street. A car got crushed between them like a soda can. The giant grunted, feet digging into asphalt. He slid, then stopped. Homelander pulled back and punched. The punch hit like a battering ram. The giant's head snapped to the side. Huey gasped. Annie's fingers curled into fists. Homelander smiled for a split second, because he felt the impact. He needed to feel it. "See?" Homelander said under his breath, like he was talking to himself. "I can hurt you." He punched again, and again. The giant took it, shoulders rocking, face tightening. The hits mattered, but they didn't end anything. Then the giant's eyes narrowed. His anger climbed, and with it, his body seemed to get heavier, not slower. Heavier, like the world had to work harder to move him. He swung once, not a fancy punch, a wide, brutal hook. Homelander barely dodged. The wind from it still clipped him, and he spun sideways in the air. Annie's eyes widened. Huey whispered, "He almost—" Homelander's boots scraped the street as he regained balance. His face hardened. He fired heat vision. Red beams struck the giant's shoulder and chest, burning the surface, smoking green skin. The giant roared and stepped forward anyway. He grabbed a streetlight pole and yanked it out of the ground, concrete ripping like paper. He swung it at Homelander like a club. Homelander flew up to avoid it. The pole smashed into a Vought camera van and turned it into twisted metal. Annie flinched. Civilians! People were still nearby. Even with barriers and sirens, some always stayed. Some couldn't run fast. Some were trapped in cars. The giant's head turned toward a scream. A bus had crashed into a curb during the chaos. It tilted, half on the sidewalk, half in the street. People were pressed against windows, crying, trying to push the door open. Homelander saw it too. He could have helped. But he saw a better thing. He saw a camera angle. He floated higher, loud enough for microphones. "Citizens, remain calm. I am handling the threat." Annie's stomach turned. The giant didn't wait for permission. He stomped toward the bus. Homelander dropped down in front of him, blocking the path. "You don't get to be the hero," Homelander hissed, voice low and sharp, meant only for the giant. "That's my job." The giant didn't understand the words. He understood the block. He understood the threat. He slammed both hands together in a hard clap. The shockwave burst outward. Windows shattered up and down the street. Dust blasted from the ground. Vought drones wobbled in the air like they'd been punched. Homelander got shoved backward, cape snapping like a flag in a storm. His eyes widened in surprise. Annie covered her face from flying grit. Huey coughed. The giant reached the bus. He grabbed the frame under it and lifted, not slowly. He lifted like he was picking up a heavy couch. The bus rose, enough to level it, enough to let the door swing free. People tumbled out, coughing, crying, scrambling away. Huey stared, mouth open. He's saving them." Annie's throat tightened. "Yeah." The giant set the bus down with a hard thud that still shook the street, but it didn't crush anyone. He turned his head, scanning for the next scream. For a second, the green giant looked less like a monster and more like a force of nature that could choose where to land. Homelander landed hard beside him. His face was red with anger now, not from effort, but from insult. He punched the giant in the side of the head with full speed. The giant's head snapped. He took a step sideways. Then he turned slowly. His eyes locked on Homelander. The anger in his face sharpened into something focused. Homelander fired heat vision again, longer, trying to cook him, trying to force him down. The giant walked through it. His skin smoked, his teeth clenched, his fists shook. Then he grabbed Homelander. It happened so fast Annie barely saw the moment. One huge green hand closed around Homelander's cape and shoulder, yanking him out of the air. Homelander's eyes went wide. For one heartbeat he looked like he couldn't believe that anyone could touch him. The giant slammed him into the street. Asphalt exploded outward. Homelander grunted, stunned. The giant raised his fist. Annie's heart stopped. If that punch landed full force, this fight would be over in a way Vought could never hide. But the giant froze. Not because he suddenly became gentle. Because a new scream cut through the street. A building facade, cracked by the shockwave and the heat, began to collapse. A slab of concrete and glass tilted toward a group of people who were too slow to run. The giant's head snapped toward it. His fist trembled in the air. Homelander, half buried in broken road, looked up and saw the hesitation. He saw the choice. He smiled. The giant dropped Homelander and leaped. One jump carried him across the street like a cannon shot. He caught the falling slab with both hands. Concrete cracked under his grip. He pushed it back, straining. Dust poured down over him like gray rain. He shoved the slab into the building's frame with a loud crunch, stabilizing it enough for people to escape. He turned back, and Homelander was already rising into the air, dust on his suit, eyes blazing with rage and fear mixed together. Homelander shouted, loud for the cameras now, "I drove it back! Stay behind me!" Annie felt sick. The giant looked up at Homelander like he didn't understand why the flying man kept talking. Then, far away, sirens changed tone. A deeper sound joined them. Heavy vehicles arriving. More sound cannons. More troops. Vought was escalating. Huey leaned close to Annie, voice shaking. "We can't let them keep hitting him. It's making it worse." Annie nodded, eyes locked on the giant. The green giant's chest rose and fell. His skin still smoked in places. His anger was higher now. His body looked even bigger than before. And now there were too many guns. Homelander hovered above, trying to look like a king. The giant looked from the guns to the people running. Then he did the one thing Vought couldn't control. He left. He crouched, muscles tightening, and launched upward in a single jump. He cleared the rooftops like they were low fences. The wind of his takeoff knocked over a Vought camera rig. A crew member fell. Annie saw it and flinched, but the giant's hand shot out midair, grabbing the falling rig and tossing it safely onto an empty roof as he sailed past, without even slowing. Then he was gone into the night, a green blur over the city. For 2 seconds, the street was silent, except for sirens and coughing. Homelander hovered, chest rising, eyes darting. He looked smaller up there than he wanted to. Then he forced his face into a smile and turned toward the nearest camera drone. "Threat contained," he announced, voice booming. Annie stared up at him, anger burning behind her eyes. Huey whispered, "That's a lie." Annie didn't look away from Homelander. "Yeah," she said, "and they're about to make it the headline." In the distance, searchlights swept across rooftops again. Vought was hunting, and somewhere out there, a terrified man was trying not to breathe too fast. The next morning, the city woke up to a story that already had a headline. Not the truth, not the screams, not the cracked street and the people running for their lives. A story. On every screen in every diner and gym and waiting room, the same clip played on a loop. Homelander floating in front of a smoking street. His jaw set, his eyes bright, his voice smooth. "Threat contained. Vought will keep you safe." The clip ended before the green giant jumped away. It ended before the bus tipped. It ended before Homelander hit the ground. Annie watched it in a conference room in Vought Tower with no windows. The walls were clean. The table was too shiny. The air smelled like expensive coffee and fear. Ashley Barrett stood at the front with a remote, clicking through slides like this was a normal Monday. Slide 1, Monster Event Response. Slide 2, Brand Safety. Slide 3, Approved Language. "Do not say alien," Ashley said, voice too fast. "Do not say demon. Do not say experiment. We say unregistered hostile. We say public safety incident. We say..." She clicked again. "We say Homelander intervened." Homelander sat back in his chair with his arms crossed. He looked bored, but his eyes kept flicking to the screen. He liked seeing himself win. Annie sat 2 seats away, hands folded tight in her lap. On the far end of the table, Stan Edgar watched without a single change in his face. He didn't need to look important. He just was. Ashley clicked to a slide called Legal. "Also," Ashley said, forcing a laugh that didn't land, "we have a form." She held up a packet of paper like it was a weapon. A form, a sign-in sheet, a liability waiver, an incident witness release. Annie stared at it, almost not believing it. A monster from nowhere had landed in the street, and Vought's first instinct was paperwork. Homelander snorted. "Yeah, I'm sure the big green freak is going to sign a waiver." A few executives laughed too loudly. Edgar lifted a hand. The laughter died. Edgar's voice was calm. "The waiver is not for him," he said. "It is for everyone else." He looked at Annie for half a second, like he could see the thought in her head. Annie's throat tightened. Ashley clicked again, bringing up a grainy image of the man before he changed. Thin, hurt, scared. "This is our unknown," Ashley said. "This is our angle. We need a name for him. We need a label. Something simple." Edgar leaned forward just slightly. "We do not need a name," he said. "We need custody." A scientist at the side of the room cleared his throat. "Sir, the radiation signature is unusual." Edgar didn't look at him. "Define unusual." The scientist swallowed. "Gamma. High gamma output, sir. Not like Compound 5. Not like anything in our records." Homelander's fingers tightened on the armrest. "So it's not even a soup?" he snapped. Edgar finally looked at him. "It is an asset," Edgar said. That is the only category that matters. Homelander's nostrils flared. Annie could feel the heat in him, the way he hated being told what mattered. Ashley clicked again, trying to steer the room back into safe. "We have a public plan," she said. "We have a crisis tour. We have a statement. We have—" Homelander stood up. His chair scraped the floor. "I have a plan," he said, voice sharp. "I find it. I break it. I show the world who's in charge." Edgar didn't blink. "You will not do anything on impulse," Edgar said. Homelander leaned over the table. "You think I can't handle it?" Edgar's tone stayed flat. "I think your need to be seen handling it is the problem." Silence fell like it fought a weight. Annie stared at the tabletop. Her stomach twisted. This was it. The real Vought. Not the posters. Not the speeches. This room. Edgar tapped the table once. "Containment teams are already deployed," he said. "We will collect samples. We will find patterns. We will build options." The scientist nodded too fast. "Yes, sir." Ashley lifted the packet again, like she still believed paper could save them. "And the forms?" Edgar's eyes moved to Ashley. "Print more." Homelander's laugh was short and mean. He walked out. Annie watched him go, then looked at the paused image of the scared man on the screen. Not the giant. The man. She could still hear his voice from last night, thin and desperate. "Please, don't come close." Annie's hands clenched. They weren't hunting a monster. They were hunting a person who happened to turn into a disaster. In a basement hideout that smelled like sweat and old wires, Billy Butcher listened to the same story on repeat. Only he didn't listen for comfort. He listened for cracks. The news anchors were too polished. The expert panels were too fast. The footage was cut too clean. Vought control, top to bottom. On the screen, Homelander smiled. Butcher pointed at it with a dirty finger. "Look at him," he said. "He's rattled." Didn't look up from the table where he was laying out maps. "He's always rattled," said. "He just hides it better." Frenchie paced with nervous energy, hands fluttering like he was trying to shake ideas out of the air. "This is not like the others," he said. "He is not trained. Not like the soups here. He is raw." Huey sat on the edge of a chair that looked too small for him. He looked like he hadn't slept. "He saved people," Huey said, almost to himself. Butcher snapped his eyes to Huey. "He also smashed half a street." "Because they kept shooting him," Huey shot back, voice cracking. "What did they think would happen?" Butcher stepped closer, looming. "I think what always happens," he said. "Vought makes a mess, and people like us bleed for it." Slid a pen across the map. "We're not bleeding for it this time," he said. "We're not using him like a missile. We're not poking a bear the size of a building." Butcher's smile was thin. "Maybe we should." Kimiko sat in the corner, silent. Her eyes stayed on the footage when it showed the man's face for half a second. The fear. The confusion. Frenchie noticed her gaze. "You see it too," he murmured. Kimiko's hand lifted. 2 fingers touched her chest. Then her fist. A person. A monster. Huey nodded hard. "Exactly," he said. "There's someone inside. If we find him first, we can, I don't know, help him, hide him, anything that isn't Vought." Butcher scoffed. "Help him?" Huey stood up, suddenly angry in a way that surprised even him. "Yes," he said, "help him. Because if we don't, Vought will turn him into a product, and Homelander will turn him into a trophy." Butcher stared at him like Huey had grown a second head. Then Butcher's eyes drifted back to the map, to the streets, to the river, to the search patterns. He tapped the marker against his palm. "Fine," he said. "We find the little man." MM's shoulders loosened, just a bit. Butcher added, quieter, like a promise to himself. "And if the big green bastard turns on us, we put him down." MM's eyes went cold. "With what?" Butcher didn't answer. Because there wasn't an answer yet. Not a real one. Bruce Banner moved through the city like he was trying not to exist. He stayed in shadows. He avoided bright streets. He listened for boots and engines and the low buzz of drones. He found an abandoned maintenance tunnel under a closed construction site. It was damp. It smelled like rust. But it was quiet. He sat on the concrete and tried to make his breathing slow. In, out. Count. In, out. He rubbed his face with shaking hands. His knuckles were scraped. His elbows hurt. He could feel bruises in places that didn't make sense. He didn't remember the punches. He remembered the feelings. Bright lights, people screaming, electricity, the surge of anger like a flood. Then, gaps. He hated the gaps. A screen glowed at the end of the tunnel. Someone had left a little TV behind a chain-link fence, still plugged in. It flickered with static. Banner stared at it for a long time before he dared to turn the volume up. Homelander's face filled the screen. Banner's stomach turned. "Vought will keep you safe," Homelander said. "We will hunt this threat down." Banner's hands tightened. His breathing sped up. Threat. He looked down at his palms. They were human, small, fragile, and yet they were also not. He swallowed hard and forced his hands to relax. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay, you can't get angry. You can't." The TV cut to a panel of people in suits. One man said, "This is why we need stronger oversight." A woman said, "This is why we need Vought to have more power, not less." Banner stared. "No," he whispered, almost pleading with the screen. They were going to use him as a reason to tighten the cage. They were going to turn his existence into a law. A drone buzz sounded faintly above the tunnel. Banner froze. He turned the TV off, heart hammering. He stood slowly, forcing his body to obey calm. He couldn't stay. Not here, not anywhere. He needed a lab. He needed data. He needed to know why he was here and how to stop it. Most of all, he needed to stop the other one from being forced into another fight. Because every fight made him stronger. And every fight made the world less safe. Banner climbed out through a broken service hatch and slipped into the city again. A billboard lit up as he passed the street. A giant smiling Homelander with bold words, "Homelander saves." Banner didn't look away fast enough. His chest tightened. Then he shut his eyes and breathed. In, out. Count. He walked on. Annie didn't go back to her apartment. She didn't trust the cameras in her building. She didn't trust the friendly doorman. She didn't trust the quiet hum of Vought tech that always seemed to be listening. She met Huey in a place that felt old and ignored. A small church basement that had been used for storage, then forgotten. Huey brought a bag with supplies, bandages, water, a cheap hoodie. Annie brought a key card she wasn't supposed to have. They didn't talk much. Talking made it real. They moved like they were already in trouble. When the door creaked open and Banner stepped inside, both of them tensed. He looked worse than he had on the street. His skin was pale, his hair was a mess, his eyes darted to every corner. He stopped when he saw Annie's face. "You were there," he said softly. Annie kept her voice gentle. "Yeah," she said. "I was." Banner's gaze shifted to Huey. "And you're not them." "No," Huey said quickly. "No, I'm not Vought." Banner let out a shaky breath, like that mattered more than anything. He stepped back, almost ready to run. "Please," he said. "I'm trying to keep this from getting worse." Annie's throat tightened. She wanted to tell him she believed him. She wanted to tell him she understood. But she also knew what fear did. So she kept it simple. "We're not here to hurt you," she said. "We're here to keep you away from them." Banner's eyes flicked to the door again. "They'll find me," he said. "They always find me." Huey took a cautious step forward and held out the hoodie like an offering. "You're safe here," he said, even though none of them really knew that. Banner didn't take it right away. He stared at it like it might be a trick. Annie spoke again. "What's your name?" Banner hesitated, like names were dangerous. Bruce, he said. Bruce Banner. Huey blinked. Okay, Bruce, I'm Huey. This is Annie. Banner's gaze narrowed, like he was testing the shape of the world. Annie, he repeated. You're one of them. Annie's face went tight. I'm with them, she said. I'm not like them. Banner looked down. I don't know what that means here. Annie swallowed. It means I don't want people hurt. Banner's shoulders sagged a little. He stepped forward and took the hoodie with shaking hands. He pulled it on, hiding the bright costume under something plain. Huey watched him like he was watching a bomb with a human face. Banner's voice was low. I didn't mean to do any of that, he said. The other one. He comes out when I'm scared, or angry, or hurt. Annie nodded slowly. You tried to save people, she said. Banner's eyes widened, almost surprised. He did? Huey nodded hard. Yes, he said. We saw it. You lifted a bus. You held up a building thing. Banner's face twisted with pain. I don't remember, he whispered. Silence filled the basement. Annie spoke carefully. How does it work? Banner took a breath. Experiment, he said. Radiation. Gamma. It changed me. I tried to control it. Sometimes I can. Sometimes I can't. His hands clenched, then relaxed. He's strong, he said, like that word wasn't big enough. The angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. Huey's mouth went dry. So, if they keep attacking you? Banner nodded once, sharp. It gets worse. Annie felt cold run down her spine, because she could already see what Vought would do. They would poke him. They would cage him. They would make him break. Banner looked at them, eyes wet but steady. I need to leave this city, he said. I need a lab. I need to figure out why I'm here. I need to... A sound upstairs. A soft thump. Then another. Banner froze. His breathing picked up. Annie stepped closer fast. Hey, she said. Hey, look at me. Banner's eyes snapped to hers. Annie held up her hands. No one is touching you, she said. We're okay. Huey moved to the stairs, listening. Footsteps. Heavy ones. Huey's face went pale. That's not a normal person, he whispered. Annie's heart pounded. Banner's jaw clenched. No, he breathed. No, no! The door at the top of the stairs creaked. A voice floated down, cheerful and smooth. Hello, it called. Anybody home? Annie's blood turned to ice. Not Homelander. Someone worse in a different way. Someone who smiled while doing terrible things. Victoria Newman stepped into the stairwell, hands raised like she was visiting a friend. Annie January, she said warmly. And, you must be the man everyone is losing their minds over. Banner stared at her, confused and scared. Newman's eyes flicked over him like she was reading a file. I'm not Vought, she said softly, and I'm not here to hurt you. Annie's voice came out hard. How did you find us? Newman's smile didn't change. This city has ears, she said, and Vought has too many. I prefer my own. Huey stood at the bottom step, blocking the path like his body could stop a storm. What do you want? Newman looked at Huey like he was cute. I want leverage, she said, honest enough to be terrifying. I want options, and you, Bruce Banner, are an option. Banner's breathing sped up. Annie saw his hand start to shake again. Newman noticed too. Her smile softened, like she was performing kindness. Easy, she said. No sudden moves, no yelling. Annie's eyes narrowed. You're not helping. Newman sighed like Annie was being difficult. You think Vought is the only danger? She asked. Homelander wants to be the only god in the sky. Vought wants to own you. The government wants to weaponize you. You have no friends here. Annie's voice was low. We're right here. Newman looked at her. Are you? She asked. Because you still wear their symbol. Annie felt the hit of that. Deep. Newman turned back to Banner. "Come with me," she said. "I can hide you. I can protect you. I can give you a place where they can't touch you." Banner's eyes flicked to Annie and Huey. He looked like a man drowning, offered a hand by someone he didn't trust. Huey's voice shook. "Don't," he said. She's not safe." Newman's smile widened a fraction. "You don't know me," she said. Huey swallowed. "That's the problem." For a moment, the basement felt like it might explode from tension alone. Then Annie stepped forward and said the simplest truth she had. "He can't be owned," Annie said. Newman's eyes stayed calm. "Everything can be owned," she replied. Banner's breath hitched. Annie saw his pupils widen, saw the tremor turn into a shiver. She moved fast. "Bruce," she said, voice firm but gentle, "look at me. Breathe with me." Banner's eyes locked on hers. "In, out. Count." Newman tilted her head, watching like this was a science demo. "Interesting," she murmured. Huey clenched his fists. "Get out," he said, louder now. Newman looked at him like he was a bug that had learned a word. Then she lifted both hands again, stepping backward. "Fine," she said lightly. "I'll go. For now." She paused at the top step. "But understand this," she said. Voice still warm. "Vought will not stop. Homelander will not stop. And neither will what's inside him." She glanced at Annie. "Call me when you're done pretending you can handle it alone." Then she was gone. The upstairs door clicked shut. Silence rushed back in like a held breath released. Banner sank to the floor, shaking. Annie crouched beside him. Huey kept staring at the stairs, like Newman might come back with an army. Banner whispered, "Who was that?" Huey's voice came out thin. "A politician," he said, which somehow makes it worse. Annie's jaw tightened. The world had noticed Bruce Banner, and everyone who noticed him wanted to turn him into a tool. Stan Edgar's lab did not look like a mad scientist movie. It looked like money. White floors, clean lights, stainless steel, people in neat coats moving with quiet speed. A lead scientist stood in front of a sealed container. Inside was a tiny scraped sample taken from a shattered street, a smear of green blood mixed with dust. The scientist's hands trembled. "This is impossible," he whispered. Edgar stood behind him, hands folded. "Impossible is not useful," Edgar said. "Make it possible." The scientist swallowed. "It's not Compound 5, he said. "It's not even compatible." Edgar's eyes stayed on the sample. "Then you will build a bridge." A tech rolled in a cart with forms on a clipboard. The tech looked awkward. "Sir," he said, "legal says the chain of custody sheet needs signatures for—" Edgar didn't turn his head. "Sign it," he said. The tech blinked. "But—" "Sign it," Edgar repeated. The tech signed. Fast. Even in a room full of glass and steel, paper still mattered. Not because it was real, because it was control. The scientist looked at the green smear again. "If we push this the wrong way," he said, "we could create something unstable." Edgar's voice stayed calm. "We are already dealing with something unstable," he said. "The difference is that this time, it will belong to us." He leaned in closer, tone quiet. "Proceed." The scientist nodded. His team began to work. In another part of the tower, Homelander stared at his own face on a giant screen while a stylist adjusted his collar. Ashley hovered nearby with a tablet. "We need you at the Children's Hospital at 2, Ashley said. "Then the memorial for the incident at 4. Then a live Quanda at 6. Homelander didn't look at her. "Cancel it," he said. Ashley's mouth dropped open. "We can't cancel." Homelander finally turned his head. His eyes were flat and cold. "Cancel it," he repeated. Ashley's hands shook as she tapped the tablet. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. What do you want to do instead?" Homelander stared at the screen again. He imagined the green giant's hand grabbing his cape. The shock of it. The disrespect. He smiled. "I'm going to hunt," he said. Ashley swallowed. With a team?" Homelander's smile widened. "No," he said. "With an audience." Days passed like bruises. Banner stayed hidden with the help of Annie and Huey. Then with the boys, once agreed it was safer to pull everyone into one messy plan instead of two half-plans. The hideout felt too small for Banner's fear. Laid down rules the first day. "No yelling," said, looking at everyone and then looking directly at Butcher. "No guns pointed at him. No surprise touching. No tests." Butcher made a face like he was tasting something rotten. "What is this, a nursery?" "It's survival," said. Frenchie tried to make it lighter. "We can make a schedule," he said, joking. "Tuesday, breathing. Wednesday, not breaking the city." Butcher rolled his eyes. "Put it on a form, why don't you?" Huey almost laughed, then stopped because the laugh caught in his throat. Banner didn't laugh at all. He just looked tired. He sat at the table with a borrowed notebook and wrote numbers. He wrote calming patterns. He wrote facts like facts could protect people. Annie watched him from the doorway. She saw how careful he was with every breath. She also saw how the world was tightening around them. Drones were more common now. Sirens were louder. VOT ads were everywhere, promising safety like safety could be bought. One night, Banner looked up from his notebook and said, "I need equipment." Frowned. "Equipment for what?" Banner's voice was quiet. "To measure," he said. "To understand. To control. I can't just hope breathing fixes it." Butcher leaned back. "You're a doctor, yeah?" Banner blinked. "A physicist," he said. Then added, "But I work with biology too." Butcher's eyes sharpened. "So you can build us a way to kill Homelander?" Banner went very still. "No," he said. Butcher's smile was sharp. "You don't even know him." Banner's gaze lifted, steady despite the fear. "I know your world," he said. "I've watched the news. I've seen what he is." Annie's chest tightened. Banner continued, voice low but firm. "If your plan is to point the monster at a man, you're not fixing anything. You're just moving the disaster." Butcher's jaw tightened. "Disaster is the point," he said. Stepped between them with his voice, not his body. "Enough," he said. "Bruce is right about one thing. We don't control him." Banner's hands trembled. He pressed them flat on the table. "I don't want to hurt anyone," he said. "But if VOT keeps pushing, it will happen. And it will be worse each time." Frenchie nodded slowly. "So," he said carefully, "you want a lab?" Banner nodded once. "A real one," he said. "And files. Whatever VOT collected from the fight. They will know more about what happened to me here than I do." Annie's eyes narrowed. "VOT has that?" Butcher's grin returned. "Then we take it," he said. Groaned. "Of course you say that." Butcher shrugged. "It's what we do." Huey looked at Banner. "Would it help?" he asked. Banner swallowed. "It's the best chance," he said. "I can't promise a cure, but I can promise this. More knowledge means more control." Kimiko, sitting quietly, signed with her hands. "Control. Safe." Banner watched her, then nodded, like he understood without words. Annie felt the group shift, from hiding to moving, from fear to a plan. And she hated that plans in this world always involved breaking into a building owned by monsters in suits. Frenchie spread out a rough blueprint he had drawn from memory and stolen maps. "VOT Medical Research Annex," Frenchie said, tapping a spot. "Not the tower, not the main labs. Smaller, still heavy security." Crossed his arms. Too many eyes. Butcher leaned in. "Perfect," he said. Annie shot him a look. "Not perfect. Dangerous." Butcher didn't look away. "Dangerous is the job." Banner's voice cut in. calmer than anyone expected. "We do it without killing," he said. Butcher laughed once. "That's cute." Banner's eyes stayed steady. "It's necessary," he said. "If people die because of me, I won't be able to live with it. And he won't either." The room went quiet. Even Butcher didn't have a quick joke for that. Finally nodded. "Fine," he said. "No killing. That's the rule." Butcher muttered, "You lot and your rules." Frenchie clapped his hands once. "Then we plan," he said, trying to sound upbeat. "We plan like grown-ups." Butcher smirked. "Print us some forms, mate." Frenchie actually pulled out a pen and wrote "No killing" in big letters on a scrap of paper. He slid it across the table toward Butcher like it was a contract. Butcher stared at it, then picked it up and shoved it into his pocket. "Happy?" he said. MM's expression didn't change, not even a little. They moved at night, because night was the only time the city had blind spots. Huey's heart felt like it lived in his throat as they approached the research annex. The building looked normal from the outside. Gray walls, few windows. A sign that said, "Vought Health Initiative," like it was a charity. It was not a charity. Annie wore black instead of gold. Her hood was up. She didn't look like Starlight. Not on purpose. Frenchie carried a bag full of tools and wires. Carried a small device that jammed signals. Butcher carried Butcher, which meant too many weapons even when he promised not to use them. Banner stayed back with Kimiko in a nearby alley, hidden behind a dumpster and a parked van. Had insisted. "No offense, Bruce," had said, "but you're Plan Z." Banner had nodded. "I understand," he had said. "I don't want to be Plan Z." Huey had looked at him then and realized that was the saddest part. No one wanted Hulk, but the world kept making Hulk necessary. Now Huey followed Annie and Frenchie toward a side door. Frenchie knelt, hands moving fast. 3 minutes, he whispered. Huey whispered back, "If it takes 4, I'm going to throw up." Frenchie smiled without humor. "Then throw up quietly." The lock clicked. They slipped inside. The hallways were bright, too bright for nighttime. Cameras sat in corners like insects. Doors required key cards and codes. Annie held her breath every time a red light blinked. Moved ahead, pointing, signaling. He was steady. He looked like a man who had done this too many times. Huey felt like a kid following adults into a storm. They reached a lab wing. Frenchie found a panel, pulled it open, and connected a small device. The camera lights in this hallway went dark, one by one. Huey stared. "You can just do that?" Frenchie whispered. "Vought hires people like me, and then pays them badly. They forget we exist. That is their weakness." They moved through the dead camera hall like ghosts. Inside the lab, rows of machines sat silent. Fridges hummed. Monitors glowed with charts. Annie's eyes scanned for anything labeled, anything that looked like it belonged to the Green Man. Huey saw it first. A folder on a secure terminal. Project Greenlight. His stomach dropped. He thought of Edgar's calm face on TV. He thought of the way Vought never wasted a crisis. Annie stepped close, fingers moving fast on the keyboard. "How are you doing that?" Huey whispered. Annie didn't look up. "I'm not," she whispered back. "I stole someone's password." Huey blinked. That's it?" Annie's mouth tightened. "Vought thinks they're untouchable. They make their own weakness." The file opened. Images filled the screen. Not just footage. Data. A red map of the city with the green trail. Radiation readings. And a photo of the man's scared face before the change. Label. Subject Banner. Unknown identity. Huey swallowed. They're already guessing who he is. Annie scrolled. More pages. Notes from scientists. "It's not Compound 5, Annie whispered, reading. "They keep saying it." Frenchie leaned in. "They want to recreate it," he breathed. Huey's skin went cold. A line on the screen caught Annie's eye. If subject cannot be captured, synthetic brute option must be expedited. Annie stared. Synthetic brute, she whispered. MM's voice came through the earpiece, low and tense. We got company. Huey's heart slammed. Footsteps approached, heavy and calm. Not guards rushing. Guards on routine. Annie grabbed a portable drive and started copying files. 30 seconds, she whispered. Huey listened to the steps get closer. His mouth went dry. Then the hallway lights flickered. For a second, everything dimmed. Frenchie looked up, confused. That is not me, he whispered. A low alarm chirped once. Not loud, almost polite. Then a voice came over the intercom. Containment status yellow. MM's voice snapped in their ears. What did you do? Annie shot back. Nothing. The polite alarm chirped again. Containment status orange. Huey stared at the screen. At the words, synthetic brute. His brain connected the dots too late. Guys, he whispered. They have something here. A door at the far end of the lab hissed open. Cold air rolled out like breath from a freezer. A shape moved inside. It stood up slowly, too tall to be human. Not green. Not fully. Its skin was pale with sickly patches of color, like bruises that never healed. Tubes clung to its arms. Metal clasps sat on its wrists. Its eyes were open, but empty. It took one step forward. The floor shook. Huey's knees went weak. Oh no, he whispered. Annie's voice was tight. Back up, now! The creature's head turned toward them like it could smell fear. Then it screamed. It wasn't a roar like Hulk's. It was worse. It sounded like pain. It charged. MM's voice shouted in the earpiece. Move! Move! They ran. The creature hit the lab table and didn't slow down. It smashed through the glass and metal like it was paper. Annie threw a blast of light from her hands, bright enough to sting Huey's eyes. It hit the creature's face. It staggered half a step, then kept coming. Huey's chest tightened with panic. That didn't do anything. It did something, Annie snapped. It made it angry. They sprinted into the hallway. Frenchie slammed a door shut behind them and jammed it with a metal bar. The creature hit the door. The whole wall shook. The bar bent. Frenchie's eyes went wide. That is not a door problem, he whispered. Annie grabbed Huey's arm. We have to warn Bruce, she hissed. Huey's mind flashed to Banner in the alley, trying to breathe, trying not to become the solution. They ran toward the exit route. Behind them, the door exploded outward. The creature stepped through the wreckage, shoulders hunched, mouth open, drool and blood mixing at its chin. It chased them with heavy, fast steps. Huey's fear spiked so hard his vision blurred. And somewhere, far away, he knew Bruce Banner would feel it. Like a tremor in the air. Banner felt the change coming before he heard the screaming. He sat in the alley with Kimiko beside him, both of them listening to night sounds and distant sirens. Banner's hands were folded tight. He was counting under his breath. In, out, count. Then his skin prickled, like static, like heat building under the surface. Kimiko's head lifted. Her eyes narrowed toward the research annex. Banner's breathing stumbled. No, he whispered. Kimiko touched his arm once, gentle but firm. Banner forced himself to keep his gaze low. Then Huey's voice crackled through the cheap earpiece they had given Banner, shaky and loud. We need to go, now. There's a thing. Annie's voice cut in, tense. Bruce, stay back. Stay back. Those words were always too late. A deep crash shook the building. Banner flinched. He heard it, felt it. A heavy footstep through concrete. His chest tightened. Kimiko's hand moved to his shoulder again, like she could hold him in place. Banner's voice came out thin. What did you find? Huey's answer was almost a sob. They made something like you. Banner's stomach dropped. His mind flashed to the screen in Edgar's room. to the way Vought looked at the world. Not as people, as parts. Banner's breathing sped up. His hand started to shake. "No," he whispered again. "No, no, no." Kimiko moved in front of him, blocking his view of the building like she was trying to block his fear too. She signed quickly. "Breathe. Look. Stay." Banner tried. In. Out. Count. The door of the research annex burst open. Annie and Huey ran out first, then Frenchie, then moving fast toward the alley. Huey saw Banner and shouted, "Don't, please!" But it wasn't Huey that triggered the change. It was what came next. The creature exploded out of the building behind them, tearing through the doorway like it didn't exist. Its scream ripped through the air. Banner's eyes locked on it. It wasn't Hulk, but it was close enough that Banner's body reacted like it was looking into a mirror that hated him. Fear hit him like a wave. Anger followed right behind it. His heart slammed. His hands clenched. Kimiko grabbed him, trying to pull him backward, trying to get him away. Banner's voice cracked. "I can't." He tried to stand, tried to run. But the creature lunged toward the group, toward Huey, toward Annie. Banner's brain screamed one thing: protect them. And that thought was a spark in dry grass. The change tore through him. Green flooded his skin, muscle surged, clothes ripped, his spine straightened. His mouth opened in a roar that shook the alley walls. Hulk stood up, taller than the dumpsters, broader than the van. Huey froze in place, eyes wide. Yelled, "Move!" Hulk didn't look at them. He looked at the creature. The creature stopped too, like it had found what it wanted. They charged each other at the same time. The collision sounded like a car crash. Hulk drove the creature backward into the side of the van. Metal folded, glass burst. The van slid across the alley like it was on ice. The creature clawed at Hulk's chest with fingers like hooks. Hulk grunted, then grabbed the creature's arms and yanked them wide. He slammed his head forward, a brutal headbutt. The creature staggered, oozing blood. Huey stared, stunned by how fast it all happened, by how big they were, by how small he felt under their shadows. Annie shouted, "Get people away, now!" Grabbed Huey's shoulder and dragged him toward the street. "Civilians!" he snapped. "We're in a city!" Frenchie ran with them, looking back like he couldn't stop watching. Hulk swung the creature and threw it into the research annex wall. The wall cracked, but didn't fall. The creature crawled out of the dent, shaking, then rushed Hulk again. Hulk met it with a wide punch that sent it skidding across the ground. Not a clean fight, a heavy fight, a fight that made the world break under their feet. The creature screeched and slammed both fists into the street. The concrete buckled in a ripple. Huey stumbled even from far away. Annie grabbed a streetlight pole to steady herself. Hulk roared back, anger rising. And with that anger, he got stronger. It was visible. His shoulders seemed to swell. His stance became heavier. But instead of charging blindly, Hulk's eyes flicked toward the street, toward people. A couple had stopped at the corner, frozen, phones up, staring. Hulk's nostrils flared. He turned his head and roared at them. It wasn't a threat like Homelander's. It was a command. Run! The couple finally broke, sprinting away. MM's eyes widened. He's trying to clear them out. Butcher's voice came out through the comm, sudden and furious. "Where the hell are you lot?" Snapped back. "Busy." The creature lunged again, reaching past Hulk like it wanted to grab the smaller humans. Hulk moved sideways, blocking. He grabbed the creature by the throat and drove it backward, step by step, away from the street corner and deeper toward the annex. He was changing the battlefield. Huey realized it, even through his fear. Hulk wasn't just smashing. He was steering. Annie's chest tightened with a strange mix of awe and dread, because if Hulk could steer, then Banner was still in there somewhere, trying. The creature fought like it didn't care about anyone. It bit at Hulk's arm, teeth cracking on green skin. It slammed elbows and knees with wild strength. Hulk grunted and took it, then shoved the creature's face into the ground so hard the asphalt turned to gravel. He grabbed a chunk of broken concrete, lifted it like a brick, and brought it down on the creature's back. Once, twice, not to kill, to pin. The creature thrashed, still trying to rise. Hulk looked at the annex. Then he looked at the ground. Then he did something simple and smart. He stomped. Hard. The street cracked open under the creature, like Hulk was breaking through a weak floor. The creature dropped down into a service tunnel that ran under the annex. Hulk leaned over the crack, roaring down into the darkness. Then he slammed his fists into the edges of the hole and collapsed the concrete in, sealing it. Dust blasted upward. The ground shook. When the dust cleared, the hole was buried under a pile of rubble and shattered road. Silence fell, broken only by distant alarms and the hiss of a broken pipe. Hulk stood over the rubble, chest heaving. His eyes stayed locked on the spot, like he was waiting for the creature to burst back out. Huey didn't breathe for a long second. Annie's voice came out soft. "Is it done?" MM's jaw was tight. "For now," he said. Frenchie wiped sweat from his forehead with shaking fingers. "We woke the nightmare," he whispered. "We woke it." Hulk's head turned slightly, as if he heard them. Annie stiffened. Huey's heart jumped. Hulk stared at them. Then his face shifted, just a little, like the rage was trying to make room for something else. Not words, not calm, but recognition. Hulk's eyes moved to Huey, then to Annie. He grunted, low, almost like a warning. Then he turned away from them and slammed a fist into the annex wall. The building shuddered. He ripped open the wall like it was cardboard, exposing the lab wing inside. Huey stared. "What is he doing?" MM's eyes narrowed. "He's going back in." Annie swallowed. "He's going to destroy everything." Frenchie's voice shook. "Good," he whispered. "Good. Burn the files." MM snapped. "Not good if it kills people." Inside the annex, alarms screamed now, loud and real. Hulk moved through the hallway like a tank, smashing cameras, tearing doors off hinges, ripping machines apart. Not random, focused. Anything that looked like a cage, he broke. Anything that looked like a weapon, he crushed. In the main lab, he found rows of sealed containers. He yanked them open. Inside were samples, vials, green-tinted residue. Hulk stared at them. His nostrils flared. He roared, furious, and swept his arm across the table, sending vials flying into the wall. Glass shattered. Liquid spilled. Huey watched from the broken entrance, frozen by the thought of what those samples meant. They had taken pieces of him. Pieces of Banner. Hulk stomped deeper into the lab. He found a screen still on, showing a file with the same grainy image of Bruce Banner's face. Hulk stared at it. For a moment, the rage faltered. Huey felt his throat tighten. "He knows," he whispered. Annie's eyes stung. Hulk reached out and grabbed the screen. He crushed it in his fist like it was nothing. Then he turned and leaped. He burst out through the roof, rocketing into the night with a single jump. The annex shuddered behind him, alarms still screaming, lights flickering. Huey stood there panting, staring at the hole in the roof where Hulk had vanished. MM grabbed his arm. "We need to go," he said. Frenchie clutched the drive they had stolen, like it was a live grenade. "We have the files," he said. "We have proof." Annie looked up at the night sky where Hulk had disappeared, and she felt the shape of the next problem forming. Because Hulk had just seen what Vought tried to build, and Vought had just seen what Hulk would do to stop them. They weren't going to stop now. They were going to escalate. And somewhere under the annex, sealed under broken concrete, something inhuman was still alive, still angry, still trying to claw its way back into the world. For the first time since he fell through the green crack in the sky, Bruce Banner had a routine. It was not a good routine. It was not safe. It was not comfortable. But it was something he could repeat. He woke up on a thin mattress in a back room that smelled like dust and old paint. He sat up slowly. He listened. If he heard drones, he stayed still. If he heard nothing but pipes and distant traffic, he breathed. In, out, count. He wrote the count in his notebook, even though he did not need to. Writing made his hands feel steadier. Huey brought him a bottle of water every morning like it was a sacred ritual. Huey would set it down, step back, and try to smile. "Morning," Huey would say. Banner would nod. "Morning." Sometimes Annie was there too, leaning on the doorway, watching like she was guarding something fragile. Sometimes she was gone for hours, doing whatever she did to keep Vought from noticing the wrong patterns. Ran the hideout like a small, unhappy army base. He taped rules to the wall, real rules, not Vought rules. No shouting, no surprises, no guns in this room. If Bruce says stop, you stop. Frenchie added one more rule with a marker, laughing while he wrote it. No forms. Butcher tore that one down and tossed it in the trash. Then, later, Banner found it taped back up, slightly crooked. The joke was small, but it helped. A little. Banner spent most of his day at a folding table that Frenchie turned into a lab. It was not a lab. It was a table with a cheap microscope, a few sensors, and wires that looked like they belonged in a broken radio. Still, Banner treated it like a lab. He checked his pulse. He checked his temperature. He checked his stress response with the little tools Frenchie had stolen. He wrote down everything. He tried small tests. A cold glass of water on his wrist. A quick sprint up the stairs. A loud noise on purpose, then deep breathing right after. He watched his heart rate climb, then he forced it down. In, out, count. Every time he succeeded, he felt a thin line of hope. Every time he failed, he felt the shadow of Hulk move inside him like a storm cloud. Banner did not talk about Hulk unless someone asked. He hated talking about him like he was a second person. But the truth was simple. Hulk was always there. He was always listening. And the world outside was loud. One afternoon, as Banner wrote notes, Butcher walked in without knocking. MM's rule said knock. Butcher did not live by other people's rules. That was one of the problems. Banner looked up, pen pausing. His shoulders tensed on instinct. Butcher held up a folder of printed pages. Banner's eyes narrowed. "What is that?" Butcher smirked. "Paperwork," he said. "Thought you'd like it." Banner's jaw tightened. "You're being funny." "Am I?" Butcher tossed the folder onto the table. Banner glanced down. It was a Vought report, a summary, a clean, cold set of words describing the incident, the asset, the containment outcomes. Banner's stomach turned. "They're calling you a thing," Butcher said, voice sharp. "They're planning to build more." Banner's hand shook. He forced it still with the edge of the table. "I know," he said quietly. Butcher leaned in. "Do you?" he asked. "Because this world doesn't do, leave me alone. This world does cages. This world does leashes." Banner stared at the report, seeing words like synthetic brute and option deployment. He felt heat rise in his chest. He breathed. In, out, count. Butcher watched him like he was watching a match near gasoline. "You know what I think?" Butcher said. "I think we stop it at the source." Banner didn't look up. "You mean Homelander?" Butcher's smile widened like he enjoyed hearing the name. Banner's voice stayed calm, but his eyes were hard. "If your plan is to trigger Hulk and point him at Homelander, you will get people killed." Butcher shrugged. "That's war. That's a massacre," Banner said. Butcher's gaze stayed locked on him. "Then give me another way," he said, "because your breathing exercises aren't going to fix the world." Banner's pen snapped in his fingers, not from force, from tension. He set it down carefully. You want another way? Banner asked. Then don't make me the weapon. Make me the warning. Butcher blinked, confused. Banner tapped the report. This proves Vought tried to copy me, he said. Expose that. Break their trust. Cut their reach. Make them weaker without making me stronger. Butcher's face twisted. That's slow. Banner nodded once. Yes, he said. It is. Butcher scoffed and turned away, but not before he muttered. Slow gets people killed too. Banner watched him leave. When the door shut, Banner let his shoulders slump. He did not like Butcher. He understood him. That was worse, because understanding Butcher meant understanding the kind of world he had landed in. A world that pushed people until they broke. A world that would keep pushing him until Hulk became the only answer anyone had left. Banner closed his eyes. In, out, count. He opened them again and wrote one new line in his notebook. Do not let them choose for you. Vought chose fast. The annex was sealed within hours. The street above the buried prototype was covered in fresh concrete. New construction fences went up. Signs said, road repair. It looked like cleanup. It was a lid. Stan Edgar stood behind a glass wall, watching a live feed from the underground. A camera showed the cracked service tunnel, the rubble pile, the reinforced plates Vought had bolted into place. Below all of it, a faint sound scraped the microphones at random. A slow, steady scratching. The lead scientist spoke without looking away from the screens. It's alive, he said. Edgar didn't react. I'm aware, he said. We can't control it, the scientist admitted. It's unstable. It's angry. Edgar's eyes stayed on the data charts. Angry is energy, he said. Energy can be directed. The scientist swallowed. Not like this. Edgar turned slightly. Then find a different direction. A second screen showed the city's public mood. Poll numbers, social trends, news segments. Fear was high. Trust was shaky. Homelander's approval was still strong, but it had a new shadow behind it. The shadow was green. Edgar didn't like shadows he didn't own. He looked at a staffer. Have Miss January meet me, he said. The staffer nodded and rushed off. Minutes later, Annie walked into Edgar's office with her posture straight and her eyes guarded. Edgar gestured to a chair. Annie sat, careful. Edgar did not waste time. You were closest to the subject, he said. Annie's jaw tightened. You mean the man? Edgar's gaze stayed calm. I mean the asset. Annie held his eyes. He has a name, she said. Edgar paused. Does he? He asked, as if the answer didn't matter. Annie didn't blink. Yes. Edgar slid a folder across the desk. Find him, he said. Annie didn't touch it. Edgar's voice stayed smooth. This is your opportunity, he said. You have always wanted to be seen as more than a poster. Annie felt cold spread in her stomach. What do you want? She asked. Edgar leaned back. Order, he said. This city needs a story where the right people are in charge. Annie's mouth tightened. And if I don't? Edgar's tone did not change. Then someone else will find him, he said. Someone less sympathetic. Annie's fingers curled on the chair arm. Edgar watched her. Bring him in, he said. Alive. Calm. Cooperative. Annie swallowed. And if he can't be calm? Edgar's eyes were still. Then we will provide calm, he said. Annie stood up before her body betrayed her anger. I don't know where he is, she lied. Edgar didn't call her out. He didn't need to. His power wasn't in yelling. It was in waiting. Of course, Edgar said. But if you do find him, remind him that Vought offers stability. Annie's voice came out sharp. You don't offer stability. You offer ownership. Edgar's face stayed calm. You say that as if it's a moral argument, he replied. Annie left before she said something that would get her killed. In the hallway, she passed Homelander. He leaned against a wall like the building belonged to him. His smile looked friendly, but his eyes were not. "Hey," he said lightly. "Starlight." Annie kept walking. "Move!" Homelander pushed off the wall and matched her pace, too close. "You've been busy," he murmured. "Sneaking around. Being mysterious." Annie didn't look at him. "Go away." Homelander's voice dropped. "You know where it is," he said. "Don't you?" Annie stopped. Homelander stopped too, smiling like he loved the moment. Annie turned her head just enough to look at him. "He's not an it," she said. Homelander's smile twitched. "Oh," he said, "you're protecting it." Annie felt anger flare hot behind her ribs. Homelander leaned in, almost whispering. "Listen," he said. "If that thing makes me look weak, I will burn the whole city to prove I'm strong." Annie's mouth went dry. Homelander's eyes gleamed. "So you can be a good little hero," he said. "You can hand it over, and watch me fix it." Annie's voice shook with contained rage. "You're not fixing anything." Homelander's smile widened. "Sure I am," he said. "I'm fixing my problem." Then he walked away, whistling like he was heading to a picnic. Annie stood in the hallway, frozen, because she believed him. Homelander didn't need a plan to kill people. He just needed a reason. Vought built that reason in public. They announced a safety rally, a daytime event in a wide-open plaza with a big stage, a giant screen, and neat rows of barricades. The message was simple. Don't panic. Trust Vought. On the surface, it looked like comfort. Underneath, it was bait. Saw the announcement on a phone and swore under his breath. "They're drawing him out," he said. Huey's face went pale. "But Bruce won't go." Butcher's eyes lit up in a way Huey hated. "Homelander's throwing a party," Butcher said. "We should crash it." Annie stepped into the room like a storm, slamming the door behind her. "They're using civilians," she said. "They want him to show up. They want cameras." Banner looked up from his notebook. He had been listening from the back corner, silent. His voice was quiet. "Then I don't go." Butcher scoffed. "And let them keep building fake Hulks in basements?" Banner stood slowly. "If I go, they shoot me," he said. "And then Hulk comes out. And then the rally becomes a graveyard." Butcher's jaw tightened. "So what?" he snapped. "We just sit here and wait?" Banner's eyes were tired, but steady. "We expose them," he said. "We leak the files. We let the world see what they did in that annex." Frenchie lifted the drive like it was a holy object. "We can," he said. "We can send it everywhere." Nodded. "Do it," he said. "Now." Frenchie moved to a laptop, hands shaking as he connected wires and typed fast. Huey watched Banner. "Is that enough?" he asked softly. Banner looked down. "I don't know," he admitted. Outside, the city was already flowing toward the rally, like people always flowed toward a spectacle. Fear pulled them. Curiosity pulled them. Habit pulled them. Vought had trained them well. Frenchie hit a key. The files began to upload. MM's phone buzzed. He answered, listening, then his face tightened. "What?" Huey asked. Lowered the phone slowly. "The street above the annex just collapsed," he said. Silence hit. Banner's breath caught. "What?" MM's voice went low. Something came up. Banner's hand started to shake. Huey stepped closer. "Bruce," he said gently. "Breathe." Banner tried. In, out, count. But the image in his head was already there. A pale brute with empty eyes. A thing built to mimic him. And now it was loose. Annie grabbed her jacket. "We have to move people away," she said. Butcher grinned, sharp and dangerous. "Now we've got a proper reason," he said. Shot him a look that could cut steel. "This is not a game." Butcher shrugged. "It is to Vought." Banner looked at the door, then at his hands, then at Huey and Annie. He spoke quietly. "If that thing heads toward the rally, Huey swallowed. Then there are thousands of people in one place. Banner nodded once. Then Vought gets what they want, he said. A public disaster. A reason to lock everything down. Annie's voice shook, and Homelander gets an excuse. Banner's jaw clenched. He took a slow breath, like he was stepping toward a cliff. I can't let that happen, he said. Stepped forward fast. Bruce! Banner raised a hand. I know, he said. I know what it does to me. His eyes moved to Butcher. And you listen to me, he said, voice sharper now. You do not try to control Hulk. If you push me, you will not like what answers. Butcher stared back, not smiling. Fair, Butcher said, but his tone didn't sound fair at all. They moved. They didn't move like heroes with capes. They moved like people trying to stop a fire with buckets. The street near the old annex was chaos. Concrete had split open like a mouth. Smoke rose from broken pipes. Cars were stopped at bad angles. People ran, screaming, looking back over their shoulders. In the center of it, the synthetic brute climbed up from the hole, hauling itself out with raw strength. It looked worse than before. Its skin was torn in places. Its eyes were wide. It moved like pain was the only thing keeping it alive. It screamed again. Banner heard that scream and felt his chest tighten. Huey saw Banner's hands tremble and said, "Look at me," soft and urgent. Banner forced his eyes onto Huey's face. In, out, count. Annie moved ahead, blasting light into the air like a flare. This way, she shouted to civilians. Go! Yanked people behind cars, guiding them toward side streets. Frenchie threw a smoke canister near the hole, trying to confuse the brute's line of sight. It didn't help much. The brute lunged through smoke anyway, slamming into a car and sending it rolling. Huey flinched. It's going to the rally, he whispered, seeing its body angle toward the main avenue. Butcher raised a weapon. Snapped, "No!" Butcher hesitated, jaw tight. "It's not human," he said. Eyes burned. "It's still our mess if we spray bullets in a crowd." The brute charged again. Annie hit it with a bright blast straight to the face. It stumbled, shaking its head. Shouted, "Now, move, people!" They pushed civilians away in a wave, but the brute didn't care about civilians. It cared about the strongest signal it felt. Banner. It turned its head, eyes locking onto him through smoke and dust. Banner's stomach dropped. He took a step back. The brute roared and rushed him. Huey stepped in front without thinking. Banner grabbed Huey's shoulder and pulled him aside. "Don't," Banner said, voice tight. "Please." The brute swung a heavy arm. Banner tried to dodge. The fist clipped Banner's side, hard enough to send him rolling across the street. Pain flashed bright. Fear followed. Banner's breathing broke. "No!" he gasped. His hands clenched. His vision sharpened. The world narrowed into threat. Huey shouted his name, but Banner couldn't hold the line anymore. The change hit like a wave. Green flooded his skin. Bones shifted. Muscle surged. The air vibrated with a roar. Hulk rose, bigger than the smoke, bigger than the cars, bigger than the fear. The brute halted for a split second like it recognized something familiar. Then it attacked. Hulk met it head on. The first punch from Hulk didn't just hit the brute. It launched it. The brute flew across the street and slammed into a building wall hard enough to crack bricks. Huey stared, half terrified, half stunned. "Oh my God," he breathed. Hulk stomped forward, each step cracking pavement. The brute sprang back, faster than it should have been, and tackled Hulk. They crashed into a row of parked cars, crushing metal, setting off alarms like a chorus. Hulk grabbed the brute's shoulders and shoved it off. The brute slammed its fists into Hulk's chest again and again, wild and desperate. Hulk grunted, anger climbing. And as the anger climbed, Hulk's strength climbed with it. He grabbed the brute by the arms and yanked, not tearing, just controlling. He slammed it down, pinning it to the ground. The brute screamed, flailing. Hulk looked around. He saw civilians still too close. He saw Annie blasting light, guiding people away. He saw MM dragging someone who had fallen. He saw Huey watching with wide eyes. Hulk made a choice that was simple and huge. He picked the brute up like a heavy bag and jumped. One jump carried them off the street and into a wide, empty construction lot nearby, surrounded by half-built walls and open dirt. He slammed the brute into the ground there, away from people, away from cars, away from glass. The lot shook. Dust rose in a thick cloud. Huey ran to the edge of the lot, stopping behind a wall, watching. Annie joined him, panting. MM arrived a second later, looking both relieved and furious. Butcher arrived too, eyes bright like a man watching a dream. The brute surged up again, swinging. Hulk swung back. Their blows shook the air. Hulk's punches were clean force, the brute's were messy violence. Then a new sound cut through the dust, a low hum, a heavy step, a familiar voice from the worst parts of the city's memory. Soldier Boy walked into the construction lot like he owned it. His shield hung at his side. His face was hard. His eyes were flat. Behind him, Vought troops spread out with weapons ready, keeping distance like they knew better than to stand close. Soldier Boy stared at Hulk. "Well," he said, voice rough, "that's new." Huey's blood ran cold. Annie whispered, "They brought him." MM's mouth tightened. "Of course they did." Butcher smiled like he was watching a gift fall from the sky. "Now that's a show," he muttered. Soldier Boy rolled his shoulders. "Edgar said there was a problem," he said. "Didn't say it was a damn green mountain." Hulk roared at him, a warning. Soldier Boy didn't flinch. He lifted his chin, like he was used to monsters stepping aside for him. "All right," Soldier Boy said. "Let's see what you've got." He stepped forward. The brute lunged at Soldier Boy too, confused by the new threat. Soldier Boy slammed his shield into it, sending it tumbling. Then he looked back at Hulk, smirking. Hulk charged. Soldier Boy met him with a shield strike and a punch that carried real weight. The hit landed. Hulk's head snapped slightly. But he didn't fall. He didn't even slow much. Huey's eyes widened. He just took it. Soldier Boy's smirk faded. Hulk grabbed the shield and yanked. Soldier Boy held on, muscles straining, boots digging into dirt. For a heartbeat, Soldier Boy looked surprised that someone could pull him. Then Hulk ripped the shield free and tossed it aside like it was a dinner plate. Soldier Boy's eyes flashed with anger. He stepped back, chest rising. A glow began under his skin, faint at first. MM swore. "He's charging!" Annie grabbed Huey's arm. "Back, now!" Butcher didn't move. He leaned forward, hungry. Soldier Boy's chest glow brightened. Hulk roared and moved again, trying to close the distance before the blast. Soldier Boy spread his arms slightly, face twisted in effort. Then the blast hit. A wave of energy burst from Soldier Boy's chest, slamming into Hulk and the brute at the same time. The dirt blew outward. Dust became a wall. Huey ducked behind concrete, ears ringing. When the dust cleared, Hulk was on one knee. Smoke rolled off his skin. For a second, Huey thought, maybe that did it. Then Hulk stood. Slowly. He lifted his head. His eyes were sharper now. His breathing heavier. The blast hadn't calmed him. It had hurt him. And pain was fuel. Hulk's roar came out louder than before, shaking loose pebbles from the half-built walls. Soldier Boy's face tightened. "Oh, come on," he muttered. Hulk charged again. This time, Hulk hit Soldier Boy like a truck. He slammed Soldier Boy through a stack of concrete blocks, turning them into rubble. Soldier Boy groaned, pushing up, anger flashing. Hulk grabbed him by the vest and hauled him upright. Huey saw it and whispered, "He's going to kill him." Annie's voice was tight. "He doesn't want to." Butcher's eyes gleamed. "Maybe he should." MM rounded on Butcher. "Shut up," he snapped. Hulk raised his fist. Soldier Boy spat blood and laughed, ugly. "Do it," he growled. Do it, you freak! Hulk's fist trembled in the air. Then, Hulk's head snapped toward the city. A distant cheer rose. The rally. Thousands of people still gathered, unaware how close this was getting. Hulk's nostrils flared, his body tensed. He released Soldier Boy, letting him drop. Soldier Boy hit the ground and stared up, stunned. Hulk turned away from him. He grabbed the brute instead, because the brute was already crawling toward the avenue again. Hulk hauled it up with one hand and leaped again. This time he jumped toward the river, away from the rally, away from the plaza. Huey stared. He's taking it away. Annie's eyes stung. Bruce is still in there, she whispered. Soldier Boy stood slowly, furious. He turned his head, looking past the lot toward the rally and the cameras waiting there. Then a shadow fell over the lot. A cape shadow. Homelander hovered above, smiling like he had arrived right on cue. "You boys are having fun without me?" Homelander called down, loud enough to be heard by every camera. Butcher looked up, eyes cold. "There he is," he murmured. Homelander's eyes flicked over Annie, Huey, and Butcher. Then he looked toward the river, where Hulk had gone. Homelander's smile didn't reach his eyes. He shot forward, gone in a blur. Chasing. Hulk landed near the riverbank, in a place with fewer people. Industrial docks, stacks of containers, empty lots. He slammed the brute into a shipping yard and pinned it between two steel walls, trapping it in a narrow space. The brute screamed and thrashed, but it couldn't get free. Hulk grabbed a thick steel bar and wedged it across the gap like a lock. The brute slammed into it again. The bar bent. Hulk growled and jammed it harder. For a moment, it held. Hulk stepped back, chest heaving, eyes scanning. Then Homelander dropped in front of him like a spear. His boots hit the ground without dust, like the world didn't dare mark him. Homelander's smile was bright again, the smile he used when he wanted people to think he was in control. "Look at you," Homelander said, voice almost playful, "hiding in the docks." Hulk's lips curled back. He roared. Homelander's eyes glowed red. "Here's the thing," he said, voice low now. "This ends today." He fired heat vision. The red beam struck Hulk's chest. Hulk grunted, skin smoking, and stepped forward anyway. Homelander's smile faltered. Hulk lunged. Homelander flew up, dodging, trying to stay out of reach. Hulk grabbed a container and threw it. The container flew like a giant metal brick. Homelander darted aside, but the container smashed into a crane behind him, bending steel. The whole dockyard shook. Homelander's face tightened. "Stop breaking my city," he snapped. Hulk roared back and jumped, launching himself high. He caught Homelander midair with one huge hand. Homelander's eyes widened, shocked again, furious again. Hulk slammed him down into the ground. Concrete exploded. Homelander spat and shoved, trying to break free. Hulk raised his fist. Then a sound cut through the dockyard. A small sound. A human voice. "Bruce!" Huey stood at the edge of the yard, too close, eyes wide, voice shaking but loud. Annie and were behind him, trying to pull him back. Hulk's fist froze. His head turned toward Huey. Homelander saw it too. He smiled. "Aw," Homelander cooed, "you brought friends." Huey shouted again, voice cracking. "Bruce, please! Don't let him make you—" Homelander's eyes flashed red. He fired a thin beam toward Huey. Annie screamed and threw a blast of light, trying to knock Huey sideways. Tackled him too. The beam sliced past, scorching the metal behind them. Huey hit the ground, shaking. Hulk's roar shook the dockyard. It wasn't just anger now. It was fury with a direction. Hulk grabbed Homelander and jumped again, carrying him away from Huey, away from the group, deeper into the empty yard. He slammed Homelander into a stack of containers and pinned him there. Homelander struggled, snarling. "You don't get to choose," he hissed. "I choose." Hulk leaned closer, eyes burning. Then Hulk did something strange. He didn't punch. He didn't rip. He pressed his forehead against the container for 1 second. like he was fighting himself. His shoulders trembled. His breathing changed. Slower. Still heavy, but controlled. Huey watched from a distance, frozen. Annie whispered, "He's trying." MM's voice was rough. "He's choosing." Homelander laughed, but the laugh sounded nervous. "What is this?" he spat. "Are you having feelings?" Hulk's lips moved. A word came out, broken and low, like it had to fight through a wall. "No." Homelander's smile twitched. "No what?" Hulk's jaw clenched. Another broken sound, clearer this time. "No. Cage." Homelander stared, shocked. Hulk released him and stepped back. Homelander stumbled forward, free, furious, humiliated. He flew up fast, eyes blazing. He aimed heat vision straight at Hulk's face. Hulk turned his head slightly, letting the beam hit his shoulder instead. Then Hulk jumped, not toward Homelander, toward the brute. The trapped synthetic brute had bent the steel bar enough to squeeze part of its body through. It was still trying to reach the city. Hulk grabbed it again, roaring, and dragged it back, forcing it down. He looked around, scanning for the safest place to end this. The river. Hulk moved. He hauled the brute to the water's edge and threw it into the river with a massive splash. The brute sank, thrashing, bubbles rising. Hulk grabbed a heavy anchor chain from the dock and wrapped it around a thick metal post, then around his own forearm, then toward the water. He plunged his arm in and caught the chain around the brute under the surface, forcing it down, holding it, pinning it under the water. Huey stared, realizing what Hulk was doing. He wasn't killing it fast. He was containing it. He was choosing the least harmful answer he could find with the tools he had. Homelander hovered above the river, breathing hard. He looked at Hulk holding the brute down. He looked at Huey and Annie watching. He looked at the cameras that had followed him anyway, circling like hungry birds. Homelander's face tightened into a smile. He raised his voice, turning it into a performance. "Citizens," he shouted, "behold, this is what happens when monsters roam free. But don't worry." He pointed down at Hulk like Hulk was an exhibit. "I will handle it." Hulk looked up at him, water dripping from his arm, muscles straining as the brute fought under the river. Hulk's eyes burned with anger, but he didn't let go, because letting go would put the brute back into the city. Homelander saw that, and he understood the real problem. Hulk cared. Hulk cared about the people. That meant Hulk could be distracted. That meant Hulk could be hurt in a different way. Homelander's eyes flicked to Annie, then to Huey. Then he smiled wider. "Starlight," he called sweetly. "Bring your little friends. Come closer." Annie's spine went stiff. She whispered, "Don't move." Huey's breath shook. MM's hands clenched into fists. Butcher, watching from behind a stack of crates, muttered, "Do it," like he was praying for disaster. Homelander lowered his voice, still loud enough for nearby mics. "You want to be a hero?" Homelander asked Hulk. "Then choose." He gestured toward the group with a lazy hand. "Let the monster drown," Homelander said, looking at Hulk's arm in the water. "Or save them when I decide to stop playing nice." Annie's blood ran cold. Huey's eyes widened in terror. MM stepped forward, voice hard. "Homelander!" Homelander's eyes flashed red for a split second. A promise. Hulk's whole body trembled. He held the chain tighter. His breath came in heavy pulls. His face twisted with rage, but his eyes stayed locked on the people, not on Homelander. Then Hulk did something no one expected. He let go of the chain. The brute surged upward under the water, thrashing for air. Huey's stomach dropped, but Hulk didn't abandon it. Hulk grabbed the metal post, ripped it out of the dock with the chain still attached, and yanked the chain up in one motion. The brute came out of the river like a fish on a hook, dripping and screaming. Hulk swung it, not toward the city, upward. He hurled the brute into the sky over the water, far from land, far from crowds. It went high, so high it looked small for a moment, Then Hulk jumped after it, a green blur rising like a cannon shot. Homelander's mouth fell open in surprise. Hulk caught the brute mid-air, wrapped the chain around it, and drove both of them down into the river with a massive crash. A wave slammed into the dock. Water sprayed. Hulk stayed under for a long second. Then he rose, dragging the brute to a floating piece of broken dockwood like a platform. He pinned it there, holding it down. It was still alive, still fighting. But now it was out in the river, away from people, held in place by Hulk's strength. Huey stared, breathless. He moved it, he whispered. He moved the whole problem. Annie's voice shook. He's saving everyone. Homelander hovered above the river, face tight with anger. He had tried to force a choice. Hulk had made a third option, a harder option, a heroic option. And now cameras were catching it. Homelander's voice rose, sharp. "You think this makes you look good?" he snapped, no longer acting. Hulk didn't answer with words. He just stared. Homelander's eyes glowed red again. He aimed at Hulk's head. Annie shouted, "No!" Em moved forward. Huey froze. Then a calm, terrifying voice called out from the dock behind them. "Homelander." Stan Edgar stood at the edge of the dock with a few security men, all of them keeping a careful distance. Homelander turned his head slowly, eyes burning. "What?" he snapped. Edgar's tone was flat. "Not here," he said. "Not on camera." Homelander's jaw clenched so hard it looked like it might crack. Edgar looked down at Hulk in the river, holding the brute. "Interesting," Edgar said, like he was watching a market shift. Huey's hands shook. Annie's whole body felt like a wire about to snap. Edgar raised his voice slightly, addressing the scene like a board meeting with water. "Bruce Banner," Edgar said. Hulk's eyes narrowed. Edgar continued anyway. "We can give you stability," he said. "A secure facility. A lab. Funding. Privacy." Huey whispered. "He knows his name." Annie's stomach dropped. Edgar's gaze stayed steady. "In exchange," he said, "you cooperate." Hulk's lips curled. His shoulders rose like he wanted to climb out of the river and crush the dock. But then Hulk's face twitched, like something inside pushed back. Banner. A small part of a banner, pressing through. Hulk's mouth moved. A word came out rough, but clear enough. "No." Edgar blinked once. "Think carefully," he said. Hulk's grip tightened on the brute, keeping it pinned under the waterline. His eyes moved to Huey, to Annie, to MM. Then he looked back at Edgar. Another word came out, stronger. "No." Edgar's gaze didn't change, but something in the air did, because Edgar was not used to being told no. Homelander's smile returned, sharp. "You hear that?" he said. "He's refusing." He leaned forward, voice dripping with threat. "Then, I guess we do it the hard way." But Hulk didn't roar this time. Hulk breathed. One heavy inhale. One heavy exhale. Then he made a choice that felt like a door shutting. He grabbed the brute with both hands and dove deeper into the river, pulling it under, far from the dock, far from Edgar, far from Homelander. The water churned. A dark shape moved beneath the surface. Then it moved away, out toward deeper water, out toward the open. Huey's eyes widened. "He's taking it away," he whispered. Annie's voice broke. "He's leaving." MM's face tightened with a mix of relief and grief he didn't want anyone to see. Butcher, hidden behind crates, stared like a man watching a prize walk out of reach. Homelander hovered, furious, powerless in a way he hated. Edgar watched the ripples and said nothing. Minutes passed. No green surface near the dock. No brute screamed again. Just water, and wind, and the distant sound of the city continuing like it always did. Homelander turned toward Edgar, voice low and furious. "You let it go." Edgar's eyes stayed on the river. "No," he said. It chose. Homelander's jaw clenched. Edgar finally looked at him, and that, Edgar said calmly, is the real problem. 3 nights later, Huey woke up and knew something was wrong before he even opened his eyes. The hideout was too quiet. No footsteps. No Frenchie humming. No moving around like a guard dog. Huey sat up fast and ran to Banner's room. The mattress was empty. The notebook was gone. On the folding table, a single piece of paper waited. Not a form. A note. Huey picked it up with shaking hands. The handwriting was neat, careful. Thank you for trying. I can't stay. If they chase me, people get hurt. Tell Annie she was right to keep her light. Tell the rules helped. Tell Butcher, don't make a monster and call it a plan. Bruce. Huey's eyes stung. He sat down hard, paper trembling in his hands. Annie appeared in the doorway, pale. He's gone, she said. Huey nodded, throat tight. Yeah. Stepped in behind her, reading the note over Huey's shoulder. His jaw clenched. Butcher leaned on the wall like he didn't care, but his eyes were sharp. Coward, Butcher muttered. Annie snapped her head toward him. No, she said. He's doing what none of you do. Butcher sneered. What's that? Annie's voice shook with anger. He's leaving so you can't use him, she said. He's leaving so he doesn't become your excuse. Butcher's smile faltered for half a second. Then he forced it back. He'll be back, he said, like he needed to believe it. MM's voice was low. Or he'll die alone, he said. Silence filled the room again. Outside, the city kept turning. Vought kept selling safety. Homelander kept smiling. And somewhere, far from cameras, a man was walking with a monster inside him, trying to keep his feet on the ground. The first quiet place Bruce Banner found was not peaceful. It was empty. A stretch of road outside the city, where the buildings thinned and the lights stopped being so bright. He walked along the shoulder with a hood up, hands in his pockets, keeping his steps slow and even. In the distance, a gas station sign buzzed, half lit. A truck passed without slowing. Banner didn't want attention. He wanted space. His clothes were stolen and plain. His shoes were too tight. His stomach hurt. But the air was cool, and there were no drones overhead. That mattered more than comfort. He found a small ditch near a line of trees and sat down with his back against the trunk of a low, bare tree. The ground was cold through his pants. He pulled out his notebook. He wrote the date. He wrote the place as best as he could guess. Then he wrote one simple sentence. I am still here. He stared at the words for a long time. In the distance, he could see the glow of the city like a stain on the sky. Even from far away, it didn't look quiet. It looked hungry. He thought about Annie's face when she tried to talk to guards, angry and scared and stubborn. He thought about Huey's voice, saying his name like it mattered. He thought about MM's rules, taped to a wall like a tiny shield. He thought about Butcher's eyes when he looked at Hulk like a weapon. Banner swallowed. He had lived in worlds with heroes before. He had fought alongside people who tried to save, even when saving was hard. This world was different. This world tried to sell salvation like a product. This world made cages and called them safety. Banner looked down at his hands. They were steady right now. He breathed. In, out, count. He wrote another sentence under the first. Power is not the problem. Control is. He paused, then added one more line, slower, and control starts with choice. A wind moved through the trees, making a soft rustle. It was the quietest sound he had heard in days. Banner closed his notebook and held it against his chest for a moment, like it could anchor him. Far away, in the city, the screens would still be showing Homelander's smile. Vought would still be printing forms. Edgar would still be planning. Butcher would still be hunting. And Annie would still be trying to keep her light in a place that hated light. Banner stood up. He adjusted his hood. He started walking again, one step at a time, staying near the edge of the road where he could disappear if he needed to. Behind him, the city stayed loud. Ahead of him, the dark road stayed empty. Banner kept walking anyway, because the world would keep pushing, and he would keep choosing, even if the choice was only this: one more calm breath, one more step forward,